Hello and welcome to part 2 of this Insights training course on changeover and setup reduction. In part 2 we'll recap the actions from part 1, look at stages 3, 4, 5 and 6, look at the benefits we can expect at each stage and set the next actions. Hopefully by now you've carried out your initial process map and developed your flowchart and moved some of that internal activity and made it external and started reducing your downtime. So now we're going to look at reducing our overall changeover time by reducing the time it takes to organise our external activities in stage 3. So we need to think about how we're going to plan and prepare for our changeover. Firstly, I want to share with you a changeover I saw a while back because it's a great example of what not to do, and it is unfortunately typical of many changeovers. The changeover was on a large semi-automated production line. The story starts with the line stopping and a supervisor picking up the phone and asking for a maintenance man to come to the line. The production team sat at their workstations and waited for the maintenance man to arrive. About 10 minutes later he arrived and said, "What's the problem?" "We need a changeover," says the supervisor. "Oh," said the maintenance man, "I thought it was a breakdown. I'll have to go and get the changeover tools." So he disappears and returns about 5 minutes later with a tool trolley. He then opens the toolbox and starts looking for the tool he needs to start the changeover. After a bit of searching, he announces that the tool he needs isn't there and he'll have to go and look for it. Meanwhile, the production team are still sat around waiting. Just before he returns, a bell rings for break and the production team go off for their 15-minute tea break. The maintenance man starts undoing bolts but can't get very far because he doesn't know which product they want to run next, so he waits. Just before the production team return, his colleague arrives and they both go off for their tea break. You see, the maintenance guys have their tea break later when the canteen is quieter. So the production team arrive back and continue sitting around waiting for the maintenance man to return from his break. When he does, the supervisor tells him which product they're running and he goes off to collect the tooling. About another 5 minutes later he returns with the tooling and the changeover starts, some 50 minutes after the line first stopped. I hope it's pretty obvious that those 50 lost minutes could have easily been avoided with a bit of forward planning. So let's look at what could have been done. Let's look again at the example I used in part 1, the Formula 1 pit stop. The pit stop isn't a surprise. Everybody knows when it's going to happen, and similarly you should know exactly when your changeover is going to happen. So, depending how big a changeover it is, and for an example, the week before. So, who is needed? Ensure all the necessary people are informed and ready to be in place for the changeover. This might be set changeover. What tooling you require, what equipment's needed, what materials are needed. Use checklists and shadowing your tools. It's much easier if they're kept at the point of use. So use things like shadow boards and fixed locations. It's easy to see if things are missing. So as you do your preparations, everything's in place. One of the things I've come across quite often, particularly in moulding companies, is when they go to put a tool on a machine, they suddenly find it needs cleaning or refurbishing. And it's a bit late in the day to be finding that out, to be quite honest. So it's worthwhile having two lots. So if we've done that organisation of our external activities, we should see that our overall time and effort needed for the changeover has come down quite significantly. We probably haven't affected the internal time anymore at this point, but we should have brought down the overall time. So in the example we're using here, to about 20 minutes. Once we've done all that organisation of activities, we're ready to move on to stage 4. Stage 4 is going back to looking at the internal activities and seeing if there's anything we can do to convert some of that time to external time. Some simple examples are thinking again about moulding tools, or indeed any kind of heated tooling. It's useful to have a preheating rack so that you can bring the temperature of the tool up so it goes on the machine warm, reducing the length of time needed to get it up to temperature, thereby reducing the overall stop time. Other things you can use are things like duplicate tooling. So I've got steps, and each of the remaining steps is taking a lot less time. I'm actually now at the point when I can start measuring my changeovers in seconds, which is good because now I'm going to start making changes that I can measure in seconds as well, which gives me a new target and a new incentive to keep driving down the changeover time. So again, in my example, the time is down to 17 minutes now from the 60 minutes we had at the beginning, which is 1020 seconds. My internal time is down to 7 minutes or 420 seconds from the 55 minutes we had at the beginning. So stages 1 to 4 have given us some significant improvements. So on to stage 5.